Head.
All right, let's do this. Brisk conversation about a terrible, terrible PC Gamer article.
It is one of our classics.
I know. Hidden Object Guru here, joined by...
The Unabridged Gamer.
who I understand likes a Star Wars game. That's not like you at all.
I know. Actually, enjoying a new Star Wars game is very
Off-brand,
unconventional.
I would say. Yeah, very off-brand. I was shocked when you told me you ended up loving this thing. But please, Star Wars Hunters, what is it?
So, it's a 4v4 multiplayer free-to-play shooter. It's a hero shooter. And I say shooter lightly, like three of the main characters actually are melee-based. You've got a droid that thinks it's a Jedi, an actual Sith assassin dropout, and a Wookiee with two of the largest hammers you ever did see.
Nice.
Which are clearly ripped off of an Imperial, not Dark Trooper. They weren't allowed to call them Dark Troopers at that point, but basically a Dark Trooper.
Oh, I love
He's
Dark
essentially
Troopers.
using their arms.
Oh, nice.
But there's a whole mess of really, really creative characters. I love that they even dig into the lore a bit. Like, there's a Mira Luca sniper, and for those who don't know, Mira Luca don't have eyes. They only see with the Force. So that makes him a really interesting approach to making a sniper character. He actually has like a whole heightened senses ability that reveals people through walls and that.
But, like, you can play the regular game and see the surroundings, right? Like, they don't make you play the whole game in that mode.
Yeah, no, you don't have to play the whole game in that mode.
Okay.
It's just, there's a nice variety of... There's even two Jawas stacked on top of each other just trying to play as one contestant.
That's really... I mean, two Jawas in an extra large trench coat, that's a really cute image.
Yes, and there's also, probably my favorite character design, though, has to be Slingshot. He's an Ugnaught, one of those little pig guys from Bespin.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's riding a destroyer droid as essentially a dragster thing. It's like his whole vehicle. So he's essentially doing the whole Mecha Gundam thing inside the droid. It's fantastic. It's a really cool... That's just it. There's so much creativity. Even the generic Imperial Stormtrooper, who is actually one of my mains, Sentinel... He draws a lot of his abilities from Star Wars Battlefront, as does the Rebel, Zaina. She, like, has the back-to-bomb and stuff like that, whereas Sentinel has the combat shield and the heavy gun. But even then, they have really nice flourishes. Like, he can slam enemies away with his barrel to buy himself breathing room and also stun them. But because you're often going up against other Sentinels, because he's a very popular character... If the shield's up, it doesn't actually knock the other player out. So there's an extra bit of, like, metagame going on between people playing as the same character, trying to one-up each other. There's a really great stuff. And all of this, bear in mind, is a game developed by Zynga.
Damn. Yeah, they don't...
Farmville people.
They don't tend to put a lot of... if you asked me to say, who's going to come up with a really well-balanced... 4x4 hero shooter, they would have been nowhere on that list.
Yeah, it's really massively unexpected. Even the monetization isn't actually that bad, amazingly enough. Like,
really?
You can unlock all but one of the heroes right now completely for free. The only one that's currently locked behind any kind of payment is the Mandalorian guy for the Season Pass, and the Season Pass itself is only $10, and that's it. There's no extra tier like in Call of Duty with the friggin' Black Cell stuff or anything else.
Right.
And you can unlock tons of cosmetics completely for free. There's a whole mess of ways to unlock things very easily just by playing the game. Like, again, for Zynga, the amount of restraint on display here is incredible, because not only did this launch for Switch, but also mobile. There's crossplay between all of them.
Oh.
And it's just really well handled. It's a surprisingly just all-encompassing, really tight experience. Matches are short and really enjoyable. The only thing that I'd say the game desperately needs is a ping function, because there's a lot of kids playing this, and they do not understand the concept of team composition or staying together. That is the one hurdle you'll have, is sometimes you're in a match and you just realize that either your team or the opposing team is just basically cannon fodder.
Oh no.
But that is the only real downside that I've experienced. Like, otherwise it's been really good, which is what brings us to our conversation today, because for some reason PC Gamer, even though this is not a game for PC, though you can play it on PC with BlueStacks through Android, for some reason PC Gamer felt the need to get in on this conversation, but weirdly by basically dissing all hero shooters while saying that there should be more of them. It's a very confusing article.
It was a very, very odd article that was like both every hero shooter is terrible, but also I miss hero shooters. Like, pick an argument here, buddy. I would love to see a coherent argument here. The title of the article, in case you want to read it for yourself, obviously it's linked in the description below this video. But it's called Star Wars Hunters is free-to-play junk food, but I wish it would come to PC because I miss hero shooters.
Which, again, it's just like, out of the gate, we're slapping a game in the face that, as I said, is astonishingly good, is very well polished. I mean, everyone knows getting a good multiplayer game on Switch that isn't Splatoon is not easy.
Yeah. It's really not the market for that at all.
And in fact, Switch in particular has been hurting because Paladins had to pull out a couple updates ago. They had to stop supporting it. So now you pretty much just have Overwatch 2, which does not play well on Switch at all, and Fortnite.
Oh, wow. Damn, that's not much.
No, there really aren't a lot of other options for Pew Pew on the game that are either like a premium experience or are just, leaving the system behind. So, and that's also something I want to bring up here. In this article, where this writer is bemoaning that, and to be fair, I agree with him that Overwatch was murdered by Blizzard. Overwatch 2 was definitely not what anyone was asking for, and continue to question why it still exists.
Well, I mean, that's one of those classics where you're just utterly baffled by what happened, because it's like, you've got this game, everyone loves it, everyone plays it, it's incredibly popular, so let's, instead of just continuing to sell seasons, right, and content for it, and gradually growing it over time, let's cancel the thing people love and make them buy something infinitely worse. They didn't really think that through at all, did they?
No. But then, he's like, other hero shooters tried to keep the lights on like Paladins, and that's all he says about Paladins. For the record, I really like Paladins. Yeah. I have probably... Actually, you know what? I will check on Steam this very instant. How many hours have I put into Paladins? Let's see here. 1 second here.
I'm more of a Battleborn guy myself, describing the only hero shooter he's ever played. But I was actually very happy with Battleborn. It's a lot. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad you introduced me to that one.
I miss it too dearly. 142 hours.
Okay.
That's how much I have gotten out of Paladins. It is an outstanding game. They have continued to support it. It's actually a very inclusive space. Their community manager is openly non-binary and everything.
Wow.
Doing all... They actually beat Overwatch the punch, by the way, in actually having queer representation in their cast.
Really?
Yeah. There's 2 openly queer characters in the cast, and according to the art director, far as his headcanon is concerned, he actually showed off a few others when doing some fan art after he was done working for the game.
Oh, wow.
But just, in a lot of ways, it's done a lot of great work, and actually has probably had more creative heroes than Overwatch has had for a while. So to treat it as if, this exists, but it's not really what I want, raises a lot of questions because there's no real qualifier offered as to why. Right. And that's something that just kind of is an issue with this article overall, because also brings up Gigantic, a really, cool, underappreciated one, and it's like, that's a really good way to bring it up. But then apparently didn't have the due diligence to just check and find that
currently play it.
Yeah, it's $20 on Steam right now. You can pick it up. I was one of the people who was invited back for that early test that they had all mysteriously. Obviously, I legally can't say what happened during the test, but People seem to be enjoying the game now. What a coincidence.
Nice. And by the way, I'm going to read you an actual sentence from the article just because I'm a jerk. And how shall I put this? I enjoy being a jerk sometimes. Like paladins. And one of them is even came back from the dead. That's literally the same sentence where he added the correction, but he didn't notice that he wrote is even came back from the dead. Come on, buddy.
Yeah.
A little more in, okay?
Yes,
a little
but
more
also,
effort to proofing.
I also want to say here that this is really astounding, this claim here, but there's no way around it. The hero shooter is largely a thing of the past. Really?
I don't know
Really?
that that's accurate.
Yeah, it sounds like look, my dude, I was a Symmetra main back before they ruined her. I get it. You miss Overwatch back when it was 2016.
Yeah.
You could just say that instead of trying to claim that an entire genre is dead. This is like when people were trying to say adventure games were dead, as Daedalic just kept putting out adventure game after adventure game like every 6 months.
Or that horrible period, they're like, yeah, nobody's going to play horror games anymore. And it's like, okay, so that's just something EA said, so we have to make Dead Space a shooter now? Like, what's going on here, guys? But it's just something EA said. There was no proof to back it up. I mean, yeah, Resident Evil 6 is my favorite Resident Evil game for a lot of reasons. But at the same time, I do understand why people are like, okay, I do understand why people are like, yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea, is the nicest way to describe it. I adore the game. I think Resident Evil 6 is a masterpiece. But yeah, it was. I'm not going to deny that it was made because the developers were chasing the idea that you can't just do straight horror any game. And, you know, here we are, more than a decade later, horror is perennially successful.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
We have more horror games than ever at this point.
Yeah, like it's just a constant flood of new horror games, be they PT-likes or otherwise.
Yeah, and realistically, that's just it. This stuff ebbs and flows. Even if you look just the hero shooter tag, if you open that up in Steam, like, you know, there's like Tribes 3 Rivals, which I'm not sure I would quite call that a hero shooter, but it is actually taking some inspiration from there. There's, from the same people who brought us Paladins, there's also Rogue Company. And I may have absolutely no inclination to ever play it again, but Valorant does exist. I mean, we even arguably have seen like the hero shooter mentality kind of mix with the Dead by Daylight mentality with the Puppet Master free-to-play game.
Right.
Which, so like, we're now having hybrids of other, you know, genres merging in with this. You can't really tell me that this is dying off. Plus, we are also seeing other kind of permutations of like these, just like more leaning into the TF2 aspect with Century, which is a dragon game. Although apparently they now also added like an eagle that you can play as.
Oh, nice.
Which is a gorgeous game for the record. I reviewed it for The Escapist years ago, and even at launch, it was incredible. Made my computer overheat in like 3 matches because it was that pretty, but still, not really dead. The genre's not really dead.
Yeah, there's plenty of options out there. I'm constantly seeing, I mean, maybe it's just because of the games I play, but I do see ads for, enticements to come and play Century Age of Ashes all the time. Like, it's quite a frequent thing for me. And, I mean, that's probably because I've started playing Multiversus and they're following, he's finally playing multiplayer games. Let's add all sorts of other things to it. Multiversus is garbage, by the way. No one should ever play it. I'm just the world's biggest fan of Jason, so, you know, they put Jason in Multiversus. I'm kind of obliged to play the thing. Not that I'm proud of myself for playing it or feel good about myself for playing it. But Jason is in it, so I don't have a lot of choice in the matter. So there we go. That's just how I feel about Jason. I've always been open about this.
No, I get it. I have PlayStation All Stars because they added Isaac Clarke.
See, there you go. It's literally the exact same thing. But yes, more importantly though, like it's a baffling article when I read it, just because I kept the whole thing. And hey, I know it's not easy to write to be on staff at PC Gamer. I'm sure they're paying $32 an article, and they expect 40 of them a month or something like that. So coming up with topics, I'm sure is not always the easiest lift in the world. Like I get that, but at the same time, like I got to the end of the article, and I'm like, so this is 1,000 words about how it would be nice if you could play this game with a mouse and keyboard, except it's weirdly hostile to a game that you obviously think is quite good. Like, dude seems to think it's a good game, but the whole thing has this bizarre hostility to it.
Yeah, it really does. There's just this constant negative energy, and also, again, like I said, the microtransactions really aren't a thing. Occasionally after a match, they'll be like, hey, you could buy this cosmetic pack. It's like, yeah, I press the B button and that's gone. Like,
oh, damn.
This
Yeah.
This isn't really like a big complicated thing, and if you've played any other free-to-play game, this isn't even unusual behavior. Like, I'm not saying it's great, but I'm also saying this comes with the territory, which...
Yeah.
Yeah, you really shouldn't be that surprised. Like, I recall similar things, and even, like, stuff like Quake Champions, for crying out loud, and that's like a big gone Bethesda title.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. No, I was definitely surprised by the article, and it's like, it sounds like you just really like this game, dude, and I don't know why you're being so weird about it.
And the thing that gets me is, like I said before, you can play this on PC. Yeah. It's really not hard to set up BlueStacks. Like, it's a very common thing. It's how a lot of people record Android games. I played a good portion of Dead Space Mobile's fan remaster through BlueStacks with a controller.
Wow.
It's not hard to do.
I personally am going to have to do this because it turns out, as I'm sure you've seen, Microsoft is trying to get in on that market by putting out a Microsoft-approved play Android games on your PC thing. I don't know if you've seen this. They've recently done that, but tragically it does not support the Criminal Minds mobile game. I know. So I'm going to have to finally get BlueStacks running so I can live my Criminal Minds mobile game dreams.
What will those criminal mimes think of next?
Of course. I walked right into that one. Entirely my fault. Yes. No, but I am interested to see like how this thing plays out. Is this going to grow? Is this going to last? Really, what I want to know is how much support is there going to be behind it? Like, is there going to be a lot of post-launch support? Are they going to abandon this thing right away? Because I've seen a ton of these come and go.
Yeah, no, that is my main concern too. It's why, as much as they've definitely given already enough fun for me to be like, yeah, I feel like throwing $10 to this is very fair. Like, right. I have spent $10 on far worse games than this, but I'm a little hesitant just because, not even because of like Zynga, because Zynga can stick to a game if they're confident in it, they'll stick to it for a long time. My concern is honestly the mouse, because what's that? Propaganda games? You're gonna make a bunch of games for Disney? What's that? You're shut down after 2 projects?
Yeah.
Shocker. What's that? You're making Disney Infinity a Toys to Life brand that has to work with all different elements of Disney? What do you mean it's already canceled again?
Yeah, that was a bad mistake.
Disney just does not really understand the gaming market, and the thing is, even when they first gave the exclusive license to EA, the thing they retained was that they were going to be able to do whatever mobile, PC, and I don't know if the Switch was announced yet, but just in general, that kind of sphere. Like, right. The hardcore consoles, that was EA's department, and they could have PC ports. But if it was like a free-to-play thing or whatever, Disney has a lot more oversight over it.
Right.
And I'm hopeful because of just how genuinely creative Hunters is that Disney is not actually paying that close attention, because it's basically a known fact at this point that if you work, if you work at Disney and your project isn't a high priority, you're probably not going to get as much funding as you should, but you'll actually be able to follow your creative instincts.
Right.
Like, you will be able to do things. This is how, like, Tangled the series got away with an episode about gentrification in a kids show.
That's pretty
whereas,
impressive.
whereas Book of Boba Fett was just mush.
Yeah.
Because it was a very high-profile thing that they wanted to make sure was exactly how they wanted it. Consequences be damned. So, given that we were seeing things like a Mira Luca and a Sith assassin and a droid that thinks it's a Jedi and the 2 Jawas, all of these really neat ideas that feel like someone with a creative pulse is working on this.
Yeah.
I really hope.
It's seeing the world as a playground and saying, okay, how can we use these toys? You know?
Exactly, and that's just what I've been waiting someone to do with all, because like with Star Wars Battlefront 2, there was the infamous, well, we can't have, a pink Darth Vader cosmetic, which then immediately a modder made that a mod, like, within less than a week of that comment.
Yep.
Because it's friggin' Star Wars, man. Get over
where they were
yourself.
like, they'd want something like a pink Darth Vader, and no one wants that. Then they make something, but of course people want pink Darth Vader. Are you insane? Have you met your own fan base?
So, yeah, it's like, I'm hoping against hope that they've got the right balance of this is low priority enough that Disney just lets them do what they're doing right, and that they continue to just expand it with more heroes and more maps in ways that are really fun and creative. Because the character, like, I didn't go in depth with this, but the maps are really well done. They're all asymmetric, but not wholly, so it's still fairly reasonable to balance
so it's not just a bunch of mirrored maps.
No. There's only one mirrored map, and it shows up the least, thankfully. And even it has some asymmetric elements. Probably the coolest ones actually involve, like, even like traffic flying through that can potentially take out an opponent in front of you.
Flying cars on Coruscant?
The amount of mobility.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a Coruscant map yet. But there is a course where you're actually on like a pod racer course. There's the Vandor heist map from Solo. Yeah, there's some really neat callbacks from across the era. This is technically set after Return of the Jedi. Which makes the whole a Sith assassin just being out there and Luke Skywalker just being chill about it really interesting. But they
have to be allowed some dramatic license.
Oh yeah, no question. And the mobility is really great. There's grappling hooks and leaps and zip lines and everything.
For people who know the genre but haven't tried this one, you've played a bunch of these. What do you think this feels the most like?
I'd say there's a little bit of like Battleborn going on in terms of like the feeling that skills are multifaceted, like in terms of how you can really maximize them. Like I said, with Sentinel, he has that swing attack which can be used to ring someone out or just stun them or to just buy himself some breathing room and run away. There's a bit of that Overwatch feel because the characters are not overly complex. Like, there's usually, like, up to, at most, 3 buttons, really, for most of your abilities. They really tried to keep it simple. And, crucially, something that I don't think we've actually seen in the hero shooter genre is there's not an obsession with precision aiming. Like, even on Switch, auto-aim is very generous. And that's the other thing. There's some great accessibility features. There's auto-melee, auto-shoot, auto-aim. Like, if you are differently abled and you want to be able to play a hero shooter with your friends, this is the game you have been waiting for.
Okay.
So, I'd say that aspect really actually sets it apart. It's not that heavily advertised. It's something you have to dig into the settings menu to find. But I love that it's there, and far as I can tell, it's ironically a consequence of being made for mobile, but it makes it so that even if you're playing on Switch.
It very much seems like what started as a compromise and became a feature.
Yeah, yeah, it really. So much of this is just really tightly wound,
Honestly, it makes the
and
article sound out of touch for being like, I want to play with a mouse and keyboard. I don't know that that's the kind of game it is.
yeah, I don't really think that you'd
This
need to.
isn't
Like,
this isn't a game about scoring headshots, as far as I
nah,
can
not
tell.
at all.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's a big change from what I used to in the genre. So way to go, guys!
Yeah, yeah. So it's just like surprisingly, congratulations, Zynga, you made a good game. It took you a couple decades, but you really did hit it out of the park eventually.
Well, no, and I mean it's. I guess I mean maybe I'm crazy, but it's possible this whole time. You know, there were how many fields, right? Do you have people who are genuinely good artisans who, because they are working on these product games, right, that are cynically designed to make as much money as possible and have no artistic merit whatsoever? And it's like, and then these self-same people get a chance to just cut loose on a really interesting IP that has creativity baked right into it. You know, and
Oh
so it
yeah.
sounds to me like that's the kind of thing that can happen here. Like they got people who were very talented and got a chance to work on something that they were passionate about.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one other thing I do want to say here is like I'm really, really pleased to say that while the art aesthetic definitely is lower poly than what you're expecting, it's not just straight up friggin' Fortnite, which is another thing the article tries to say, like saying the visuals wouldn't look good upscaled. No, this is a really nice aesthetic. It works well, it fits everything, and the character designs are fantastic. Every single one of them has personality. Sentinel has like this crack to his helmet and a different colored visor, sort of like how Vader had that different colored visor back in like A New Hope in that with the red instead of
Right.
black eyes. Sentinel has green, and I love that like the rebel medic who, you know, used to fight for the New Republic, she has prosthetic legs. You can
Yeah.
tell that she like, you know, actually got like a serious injury and that's why she's actually as good at medicine as she is. But it's just a subtle little bit of storytelling detail. Again, it's amazing how easy it is to get lost in just all the different little things they got right. That's just so nice. And yeah, it's so refreshing to just have a Star Wars thing that is just unequivocally fun and there's no, yeah, well, except for this or except for that. Like, literally
I'm
the
gonna say it.
only
I
warning...
didn't think this was going to be the best, the headline, but I'm genuinely going to call this Star Wars Hunters is the best Star Wars shooter in 20 years. Well, when was Battlefront 2?
Feels
When was
like-
the original Battlefront 2?
Battlefront 2 was 2005, so
Okay,
in
so
the
19
last
years.
10 years is definitely...
Definitely true. There you go. That's amazing.
Yeah, the only thing I would say as a warning is,
Please.
and this is something that threw me off when first getting started, is they don't tell you, but they stick you in bot matches for like the first 5 or so matches that you're gonna play, and you're gonna think, "Wow, is everyone in this game just terrible?" Or
Reminds me
what
when I
is
first
happening
started
here? And
playing Fortnite, and it's like there were just guys sitting in the middle of a lake, just not moving, not hovering, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, okay, well, they want me to shoot some robots in the head. I guess I'll go shoot some robots in the head. This feels pretty
the
weird.
bots try, but they're really not clever. They're not good. But if you want a real challenge, ranked is there. It's
Okay.
good. People really try in that mode.
Nice.
If you want to just be relaxed, there's casual. But just yeah, no notes other than yeah, looking forward to more.
Okay, that's great to hear. All right, so everybody
And-
check it out. It's right now only on mobile and Switch, but hey, maybe we'll get a PC port. Maybe we're going to get it on. Maybe we're going to get it on our Xboxes and PlayStations. I think the idea. Oh well, people won't accept it up-resed. I'm like, dude, I played Dave the Diver on a 70-inch television. Okay, like, what are
Exactly.
What are you talking about? People won't accept chonky models on a modern television. Like,
I mean, hell, I'll even throw a shout out. One of the most exciting indies that, you know, I've had the pleasure of trying one of the demos for, Hollow Body,
Yeah.
intentionally is trying to look like a PS2 game.
yes.
Like, actively figuring out ways to recreate that aesthetic.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to look like The Last of Us.
I was just playing Tower on the Borderland, and I got some issues with the game, but it looks like a PS1 game, and you know what? It looks amazing as a PS1 game. You were allowed to do different aesthetics, guys. Photorealism gets boring after a while. Also, it's why every video game studio is crashing, but yeah, that's a whole other story. So we'll see you back here when we've got our next game to talk about, which is, I'm blanking on the name. Help me out here. The one that's Lego City Underground, but indie.
Yes, Tiny Terry's
Tiny Terry.
Trip.
There we go. Thank you. All right. It's embarrassing that I forgot the title, but I really do appreciate you coming up with it.
Quite fine. My brain is constantly flipping it to be like Terry's Turbo Trip or Terry's Tiny Turbo Trip or what have you.
Okay.
But yes.
Yeah, we're going to be back for that next. But until then, check out more stuff here at the Hidden Object Guru channel. Yes. Oh, yeah, and of course, Unabridged. Any articles coming up?
I can officially say that the issue of Game Informer that yours truly is out.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The Hades 2 issue 366 is out there. You can find it at pretty much any GameStop now, or if you're subscribed, it should already be arrived in the mail. Mine finally arrived, and yeah. It came together really nicely. I love how it all worked, and
yeah, the art is fantastic. The art on your story is fantastic.
I'm actually pleased to say that my dad took most of the pictures that you see in there.
Wow, way to go! Yeah, it looks
his
great.
actual original major was in photojournalism before he got into IT.
Oh, interesting. All right, so we will see you back here for that. But until then, I'm going to say that's right. Au revoir. Perfect. Nice. I guess I didn't look